Hey guys, thanks for checking out my preview for House of X. I'll be talking about everything we know about this upcoming X-Men event. And stay tuned for the end of the video as I go over my own thoughts about what I think is going to be happening going forward. So thanks for checking out my video. If you like Comic Island, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our Patreon page in the video description below. So we don't know a lot about this upcoming event in Jonathan Hickman's Power of X and the other series coming out called House of X. What we do know is that it's going to function a lot like Time Runs Out, where we're having two different series running at the same time, with basically depicting the same events bouncing off of each other and informing one another with different details about the story as we focus on different characters. That seems to be the case with here, although the focus on characters is very interesting. We've got characters like Apocalypse and Magneto standing in the same frame as Jean Grey, Emma Frost, Mr. Sinister, Mystique, and Exodus. Meanwhile, we also see Professor X in Phantom X's body after that whole thing happened in Astonishing X-Men. So it's quite the collection of different characters, and it's a little alarming to see the X-Men standing side by side with some of their greatest villains, and not just Magneto, a normally complicated character who's constantly straddling the line between good and evil, but genuine villains like Apocalypse and Sebastian Shaw, who are genuine threats to the X-Men and the overall global stability of the mutant race. So what does this all mean? Well, it's interesting. I find it's no coincidence that the structure of this thing resembles Time Runs Out, and Hickman is being paired with the artist he had for a lot of that event, Mike Deodato. It seems like it's not a huge coincidence that that's happening. And I'm not saying that these are going to be the same events, but it does seem like Hickman's gearing up for another big sort of storyline along the lines of Time Runs Out, which led to Secret Wars. So are we getting a sort of House of M sequel? Well, probably not an exact sequel, but probably something with a similar sense of ambition that Secret Wars had. And if so, well, I'm all for it. Hickman's take on Secret Wars, his battle world, and his look of everything was amazing and a lot of fun. Mark Brooks also created a promotional image for this event, and it looks pretty cool too, with a far greater cast on his preview image featuring all sorts of X-Men characters, good and evil. Otherwise, Marvel's being pretty tight-lipped about what this story is about. The original House of M event was all about Scarlet Witch in a interesting mental state, recreating the Marvel Universe in her own image and allowing X-Men to take not only an equal position with the human race, but actually a superior one, essentially realizing Magneto's dream of Homo Superior. And the event was pretty good, if you ask me. It doesn't get remembered that well because of what happened after, with the mutant race essentially being wiped out, and Marvel going on a decade-long hissy fit about the fact that they didn't have X-Men characters for their movies. Those days are long past us, so I wouldn't expect Marvel to be pulling any shenanigans like that going forward. If anything, their current motivation would be to get back to integrating the X-Men more into Avengers and general Marvel stories. A lot of attention has also been towards this other promotional image for House of X, which features Professor Xavier surrounded by weird dying plants. Various news sites have made hay out of all the imagery and symbology of this image, but I wouldn't read too much into it. Yes, it is being symbolic, because the plants are clearly decaying around Professor X, and it represents this new event where characters are clearly dying or something's happening to them. But I wouldn't read too much into that, because that could mean a lot of things. It could be as simple as something saying that this event's going to be a big deal, bad things could happen, and we gotta look out for that. Or it could be very specifically getting at something that has to do with how the X-Men are treating the Earth in some sort of alternate future. We don't know, and it'll be interesting to find out. What feels like less of a coincidence and more significant, something deliberately telling us something about the overall dynamic going on with this character, has to be the fact that he's wearing the Cerebro device on his head. This device allows Professor X to track down mutants all across the world, but it has a host of other applications that we've seen over the years, including basically it being able to kill every human on Earth like we saw in the X2 movie a long time ago now. See, one thing I kind of see in my current vision for what this event is going to be, and this really isn't based on much more than speculation since I've just gone over every little bit of information we have at this point, is the idea that the way Hickman tends to present story arcs, I think House of M is worth following because it's going to be building up to something similar and big in the same way that he used Time Runs Out as a vehicle to drive us towards Secret Wars as an event. I don't know if this is what Hickman's planning, but he's done stuff like this before, even before Time Runs Out. The way he sort of set up the Fantastic Four storyline was a similar long, slow build-up to this really awesome end storyline. Now, whether or not Hickman's planning that is unclear, but I definitely think that the presence of Apocalypse, the use of a story name like House of X, and the overall artwork involved and who's being focused in these preview characters makes me think that Hickman is gearing up for another big-style X-Men event along the lines of House of M or Age of Apocalypse, where the whole world gets recreated under a certain specific set of conditions. Perhaps the history of the X-Men is going to be altered in some way to lead to this new world, and we get to spend an event exploring it. And honestly, that's great. That's such a cool thing they do for the X-Men comics here and there. I always love when they do it because it's an interesting way to explore the Marvel world as we know it. And if anyone can come up with a new or interesting twist on an alternate world for the X-Men, it's John Hickman. Because all of his stuff in Secret Wars I found so interesting. All of those different little domains and kingdoms were really cool, and it was really neat to see all of those worlds in action, existing simultaneously on the same cobbled together planet. That sort of creativity went a long way to making Secret Wars, in my opinion, one of the best events Marvel's ever done. I really don't know where he's going with all of this, but he has my curiosity because Jonathan Hickman's one of those writers that generally has my curiosity and interest when he does stuff like this. He's not perfect as a writer, his events sometimes leave something to be desired, but he always is doing something cool, something that I feel is just a perfect farm for future ideas, and just interesting concepts in general that will be looked back on for decades. I still tell people all about Battle World and how cool it was, and how interesting stuff like Greenland is as a concept. Whether or not this is all going to be used going forward, I have no idea, but I'm excited. And I'm looking forward to this event. First time I've said that in a long time about an X-Men event, so that's pretty cool, but we've been heading in that direction for a while. The last event with Cable running around the future had me kind of interested at first. I didn't really like where it ended up going, but X-Men's been moving in the right direction for some time in the comic book world, and Hickman's been a huge part of that. So him doing a big event like this, it seems like it makes sense to me. We haven't gotten to the point yet where Marvel's been drowning us in events as much lately, or at least that's the impression I've gotten. Maybe because we've been associating with these Marvel events a little less, so it feels relatively fresh to me. But I think that's what was needed for us. It's a little palate cleanser and moving on. If you're curious about how things went the last time we took a real hard look at an X-Men event, you can check out Joey's recap and review of the story Inhumans vs. X-Men, which personally I was not a fan of. So here's hoping that this new X-Men event is a little bit more kind to some of the characters, especially ones like Emma Frost, to say the least. So let me know what you guys think this event's going to be all about, because clearly this has been a lot of speculation on my part, and I'm curious what you guys have to say in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.